Say yes. All right. So, no. Well, Keiko Isom has worked for over 80 years in production agriculture, and so we really saw ourselves as someone that has those relationships and is driving towards how to make that business better. And we have a unique place in supporting those businesses. So bringing sustainability to them in a way that makes sense and is still linked with sort of the bigger issues was really important. And so we had to do that. We couldn't just sit by and just say, okay, yeah, you have to deal with that somewhere else. We really feel that we needed to advise them on this issue and deal with those sort of complex, tough challenges that they have. So I think that's where I personally come from. All right, Todd, you're up.
So I'll say, from our perspective, it was a timing issue, number one. The industry was going to go on this journey. It was obvious. This concept of food with a story is real. There's requirement in the future, particularly from the millennials, as we talked about all day today. This whole subject around culture and food and the place in their lives that it is going to require more knowledge about those production systems and the claims around it and traits. And so we felt like if we're going to go on this journey, number one, let's do it right, let's make it meaningful, and let's make it an economic benefit to the industry as well as to ourselves as we began the journey. And so the other thing that was critical, and we've been through this with many other areas of the business, is when we start in one of these spaces on this journey, if at some point you don't try to lead it right and bring it together and build a system that's flexible, you're going to end up doing 4 audits on everything you do with 4 different companies or 5, and it becomes very burdensome to the business. And so we felt like, let's pick the indicators, let's build the database with flexibility. That database that we have, as you know, you can take antibiotic use, you can take water use, you can take employee engagement, and you can write an equation a dozen different ways. And it will change with time. So build the flexibility into that data and the capabilities to change those equations to where you can answer that question about any way somebody can ask it. And have a system that will be long-lived, flexible, and won't have to be recreated, reinvented every year or two.
I think there's clearly a really important shift going on in food production in the U.S. and in the food business in the U.S., and we've all seen it. Everybody who's involved in the food industry in any way has been impacted pretty directly by what's going on. And some of it is absolutely driven by changes in consumer perceptions and what consumers want in a product that they buy. And some of it is, I think, driven by what I refer to as kind of the renegotiation of our deal with our communities and agriculture. So we used to have a deal with our communities, right? They were happy to host our businesses, they were happy to eat our products, and they were happy to deal with the not so great effects of what we do for a living because they felt on the whole that it was a good deal for them, right? There was a day when the American farmer was a hero to the American people. There was a day when beef was a trusted food that made people not just feel good because it tasted great, but feel good because they thought they were doing something good for their families and didn't feel at all bad about what they were doing for the world by eating beef. That is being renegotiated right now. And I think I am driven, and I think Cargill is driven by the desire to take an active role in that renegotiation with our communities and make sure that we cut a deal for the future that works for everybody and that gets us back to a place where people feel as great about serving beef on their dining room tables as I do and as my mom did 40 years ago. So that's the desire. It's the desire to shape the new deal that we are creating for the future and build one that's going to last and that's going to work for producers and is going to work for the industry and is going to absolutely work for communities and our stakeholders.
You know, I said this morning that as a food team, our goal is to drive sustainable food systems that conserve nature and feed humanity. And that humanity piece is ever growing, and the demand for food is going to be ever growing as the global middle class rises. And to be able to do that and also conserve nature in the process is going to be very important, because thinking about future generations having natural resources to meet their needs is going to be very important. And so, I think a good measure of, kind of getting back to Nicole's point, a good measure of sustainability is how long something's been in existence. But I think we're learning that we can measure things maybe a little bit differently and look at things maybe a little bit differently to address new challenges that are headed our way.